Your caveman ancestor was not sober. Not once. Not ever, really. That image in your head of a serious, grunting, survival-obsessed human staring blankly at a fire? Delete it. Replace it with something stranger. Across every continent, for over 10,000 years, humans have been deliberately altering their own minds, and they left proof everywhere they went. Start in the mountains of western China, a cemetery. Wooden bowls built for burning something. Scientists test the residue and find cannabis, but not wild cannabis. This stuff was stronger than anything growing naturally in that region. Someone was breeding it on purpose, thousands of years before anyone wrote the word chemistry. Now jump to North Africa. A cliff wall in the Algerian desert, painted 9,000 years ago. Mushrooms sprouting straight out of human bodies in the artwork, not beside the people. Out of them. Ancient artists didn't waste paint on things that didn't matter, and they thought this mattered enough to put on stone forever. Here's where it gets strange. One scientist looked at all this and asked a bigger question. What if these plants didn't just entertain early humans? What if they built us? The idea is that early humans who ate mushrooms growing in animal dung got a temporary boost. Sharper vision to spot predators, enhanced pattern recognition for tracking, better memory for where food and danger were hiding, and generation after generation, that edge stuck. The theory doesn't claim mushrooms made humans smart overnight. It claims something slower and stranger, that repeated exposure nudged the brain toward more complexity, more connection, more of exactly the traits that eventually let us build cities and write books. Now travel north, into the frozen forests of Siberia. For thousands of years, indigenous shamans there used a bright red mushroom with white spots. You already know what it looks like. It's the mushroom in every fairy tale. They dried it. Sometimes fed it to reindeer first to filter out the toxins, and drank the reindeer's urine to get the effect safely. It sounds absurd until you realize it's a documented pharmacological technique, older than most religions on Earth, designed entirely through trial and error by people with no laboratories at all. Head south to ancient India, and the pattern shows up again in one of the oldest religious texts humanity has ever written. The Rig Veda, composed more than 3,000 years ago, describes a sacred drink called soma, consumed by priests during ritual, praised across more than 100 hymns as something that granted visions, strength, and contact with the divine. Scholars still argue over exactly what plant it came from. What they don't argue about is that an entire religious tradition was built around drinking something that altered consciousness on purpose. Now, the part that breaks people's assumptions completely. Ancient Greece. The smartest people alive at the time walked for miles every year to drink one specific cup at a secret ceremony. They came back describing it as dying and being reborn. For centuries, everyone assumed that was just poetic language. Then someone actually tested the residue from the cups. Ergot, the same chemical family behind LSD. Mixed into a drink and handed to the founders of Western philosophy. The birth of logic, reason, and structured thought in the Western world may have happened during a guided trip. Across the ocean now, a cave in Texas. A small leather pouch, sealed and preserved for almost 6,000 years. Inside it, peyote. Not hidden, not shameful. Wrapped carefully like something precious, because it was. This pattern repeats everywhere humans existed. Ayahuasca deep in the Amazon. Peyote across the deserts of North America. San Pedro cactus high in the Andes. None of these cultures treated these plants like an escape hatch. They treated them like teachers. Modern labs are now catching up to what these cultures already knew. One study followed people after a single mushroom experience and found lasting increases in openness and creativity, still measurable years later. Another team scanned the brain during a trip and watched the fixed sense of self go quiet, loosening the grip of old patterns and letting new ones form. And in the last few years, entire medical institutions have quietly reopened research into these same plants, for depression, for addiction, for trauma that nothing else could touch. The science didn't discover something new. It rediscovered something old and pretended it was a breakthrough. So here's the real twist. For most of human history, on nearly every continent, altering your mind wasn't reckless. It was structured, guided, protected by people who understood what they were doing. It was a tool for healing, for connection, for making sense of a universe that refuses to explain itself. We spent 100 years calling this primitive nonsense, and now, quietly, in peer-reviewed journals, science keeps proving the ancients were paying closer attention than we ever gave them credit for. They weren't running from reality. They were trying to see all of it.